This is Dan Dix here reporting for Press for Truth, coming at you with another installment of What You Need to Know, and as usual, we have a lot to cover today, so on that note, let's do this. Today we're going to be talking about the corruption that runs rampant within the Toronto police force. We're going to discuss the details of what happened last week in a Quebec courthouse when, following an altercation with a suspect, an officer took matters into his own hands and decided it would be best to shoot him in the head right in front of his mother. And on a bit of a lighter note, we're going to take a look at Justin Trudeau's recent flip-flop, where he's now trying to save face by saying that his Peoplekind comment was just a silly joke. Yeah, nice try. So on that note, in case you missed it, here's the Prime Minister of Canada, Justin Trudeau, interrupting a girl's question at a town hall meeting, suggesting that she uses the term Peoplekind instead of mankind in order to be more gender inclusive.
Maternal love is the love that's going to change the future of mankind. So we'd like you to look
we like to say peoplekind, not necessarily mankind, because it's more inclusive.
There we go, exactly. Yes, thank you.
We can all learn from each other.
The interaction is making international headlines. Justin Trudeau mansplains feminism to a woman, blared the New York Post. And in the UK Daily Mail, a blistering critique by British commentator Piers Morgan, who called Trudeau a spineless, virtue-signaling excuse for a feminist.
As you can see, the internet saw right through his virtue signaling and had an appropriate response as countless headlines and memes started going viral all over the world. I mean, everyone's now wondering, are we supposed to call this a person hole? Or perhaps this should now be called the province of Personatoba, with the abundant sea life creatures known as the Personity. And of course, who could forget my personal favorite? Should we now call this guy Maryland Peoplechild? And now that this has gone viral, the Prime Minister issued a statement today suggesting that his statement was just a stupid, silly joke.
I made a dumb joke a few days ago that seems to have gone a little viral in the room on the Peoplekind comment. It played well in the room and in context. Out of context, it doesn't play so well, and it's a little reminder to me that I shouldn't be making jokes even when I think they're funny.
Are you buying that, folks? The Canadian government literally just changed the lyrics of the national anthem to where it says, "In all of our sons command," to "In all of us command," to be more gender inclusive. And we're supposed to believe that his virtue signaling right now was just a joke? I mean, you can't make this stuff up. He's clearly just a tool, and we're not going to let this one go. So face it, Trudeau, you meant what you said because you're a third-wave feminist, politically correct SJW douchebag. And moving on to our second story for today, just last week, an 18-year-old man was shot at point-blank range right in the head by a police officer inside of a Quebec courthouse, and the entire incident was caught on video. The man can be seen struggling with the officer, and at one point there were 4 men manhandling the 18-year-old while his mother looked on in horror. Then, approximately 1.5 minutes into the altercation, while off camera, the officer appointed himself judge, jury, and executioner, and he shot the suspect at point-blank range in the head. The mother obviously is screaming and horrified at what she just witnessed, and the suspect was taken to hospital where miraculously, through the grace of God, the bullet went through his head, but it actually missed his brain, and so he is going to survive this horrible incident. And this raises many serious questions about how police officers conduct themselves and how they're trained to do so. During the scuffle, the 18-year-old suspect managed to wrestle the baton out of the hand of the officer, and he hit him in the head with it, and the officer responded by pulling his gun and using deadly force. Why wasn't a taser used in this particular circumstance? Why couldn't 4 grown men subdue an 18-year-old inside of a courthouse without having to fire a weapon? In Quebec, armed courthouse security is covered by the Police Act, and they're supposed to be trained by a special constable. So I want to know who trained this man, what are the standard procedures here, and is it perhaps time for an upgrade? But rather than have the police investigate themselves, which is often the case in these situations, I think we have a need now for a public inquiry so that we can get to the bottom of what happened so that it doesn't happen again. What do you guys think? Should this officer be fired or maybe even charged with the crime? And what does this incident tell us about the training procedures that are currently in place right now? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. And for our third and final story today, as the title of this video suggests, this is what you need to know when it comes to the truth about the Toronto Police Force. Having experienced firsthand the horrors of the G20 summit that descended upon Toronto in 2010, where my basic fundamental rights and freedoms were annihilated, I know all too well just how corrupt the Toronto Police can be. I made a film about it, documenting how they manipulated that event with the use of agent provocateurs and informants and undercovers and black bloc tactics as their cover to turn what at one point was a peaceful protest into what can only be described as a police state nightmare. That film was called Into the Fire. A link will be located at the end of this video. But what sort of shenanigans are they up to now, you might be asking? That was a long time ago. Surely their tactics have evolved. Enter the world of the Toronto Police and fake news propaganda. In my video titled The Hijab Scissor Hoax, a lesson in propaganda and fake news from the Canadian government, I showed you how the police teamed up with the family of a young girl who claimed that someone had tried to cut off her hijab. This case received massive attention across the country and the world, with many politicians like Justin Trudeau himself jumping in to say that this was not Canadian and that we need to end Islamophobia. But it turned out the event never happened. It was all a big ruse, and the Toronto Police successfully carried out their role when it comes to conditioning the masses into going along with ridiculous motions like M103 that would seek to make Islamophobia a hate crime in Canada. Then, just a week later, the Toronto Police Service announced that the death of prominent businessman Barry Sherman and his wife Honey was the result of a murder-suicide. But family and friends immediately said that that was most likely not the case, and several weeks later, after further investigations, the police ended up having to admit that yes, the deaths were in fact the result of targeted killings. I'll include a link to 2 videos that I made documenting this case and the police's involvement in the description below. Be sure to give them a watch if you haven't seen them yet. And then there's this. Toronto police who allegedly ate pot edibles on duty called for help after hallucinations. 2 Toronto police officers who allegedly ingested marijuana edibles hallucinated and called for help while on duty Sunday. And this has people asking the obvious questions. Why do they get to raid private pot shops that sell to consenting adults and then confiscate those products for themselves while on duty with loaded weapons? How can Justin Trudeau appoint the former Toronto Police Chief Bill Blair to head up legalization when he was the one who emphatically enforced prohibition all these years? They're playing us for fools, ladies and gentlemen, in an attempt to monopolize the industry before it gets legalized. And every single arrest that is made from here on in needs to be dropped. Be sure to check out my film, The Trudeau Deception, where we laid it all out exactly what would be happening, and it's all now unfolding to a T right before our very eyes. And let me know if there's any honorable mentions that you can think of when it comes to the Toronto Police that you'd like to include in the comment section below, like maybe the infamous incident with Officer Bubbles. Or maybe the fact that you will never progress up the ladder of the Toronto Police Force unless you happen to be a Freemason. If I left anything out that you think should have been included, let me know, and maybe one day we can actually hold these officers accountable for the crimes they commit against society. Don't forget to subscribe to us here on YouTube if you haven't already, and if you'd like to support our efforts, please join us as a PFT member or a PFT patron. These videos are only made possible with your continued support. So thanks for watching, my friends. Click on that like button and share this video if you found the information to be useful. And stay tuned, we've got more video reports coming soon. This is Dan Dix reporting for Press for Truth.